Throughout his childhood, Kraft Walken had but one goal: to become an adventurer. At the age of 16, his dreams were made a reality when he joined the ranks of the Adventurers Guild. Unfortunately, despite his best efforts, the adventurer never lived up to his lofty aspirations. The reason? His utter lack of talent. Kraft had joined the guild as a magician, a class devoted to empowering fellow adventurers through the mystic arts. Sadly, the poor boy could only cast low-level spells, leading others to question the authenticity of his crest. As a result, he was kicked from numerous parties and blacklisted within the guild. Undeterred, he dedicated himself to honing his magical skills, but each attempt proved futile. The continuous chain of failures weighed heavily on Kraft's morale, causing even him to view himself as a pathetic loser. After being kicked from yet another party, Kraft weeps silently before the guild receptionist. The adventurer laments his lack of skill, as it has always led to him being the odd man out. Saddened by the poor boy's plight, the guild receptionist suggests he shake things up. Instead of him working solely for the Adventurers Guild, why not explore his options? She presents a request from the Workers Guild seeking assistance with the construction of their new frontier town. The contract would last for an extended period, meaning Kraft would essentially have to leave his current guild permanently. Deep in thought, the young adventurer quietly contemplates the offer. Becoming a successful adventurer has always been Kraft's dream, and though things haven't gone as planned for the past 4 years, he was determined to see it through. But now, he knows his days as an adventurer are over. His lack of skill and inability to grow have severely damaged his reputation within the guild. Ultimately, his only option is to seek greener pastures, where he can start a new chapter in his life story. And so, Kraft eagerly accepts the assignment, ending his career as an adventurer and stepping into the world of a workman. Filled to the brim with confidence, he departs the Adventurers Guild, taking the next step on his epic journey. Sometime later, a hopeful Kraft arrives outside the Workers Guild hall. Unfortunately, the flames of hope are almost extinguished by a large cart that barely misses the lad. Around him is a scene of chaos. The dirty streets are crowded, and people rush by carrying all sorts of goods with them. Then, amidst the madness, a stranger calls out to him. He asks the lad to state his business, and in response, Kraft proceeds to share the details of the request sent out for the frontier town. Upon hearing this news, the once stern gentleman is suddenly filled with glee. He gives Kraft a hearty tap before guiding him to the guild hall. Once inside, the stranger introduces himself as the leader of the Workers Guild. Kraft returns the pleasantries, and the two quickly laugh about the boy's name. Kraft, in the Workers Guild. Get it? Anyway, the leader carefully examines Kraft's credentials, intrigued by his past as a magician. However, Kraft explains that he can only use low-level spells despite working as a magician for 4 years. The boy's words suck the wind out of the leader's sail, leaving him disappointed and confused. Nevertheless, Kraft is all he's got, so he must make things work. With genuine concern, the leader asks Kraft if he has ever had his magical crest assessed to ensure it aligns properly with his abilities and chosen class. Unfortunately, Kraft admits that he has never gone through such a procedure. Having been born with above-average magical power, he always assumed that class would suit him best. Eager to gauge his recruit's true potential, the leader offers the services of a crest examiner. Kraft is initially hesitant, but the lad soon gives in after some coercing. The leader calls for the expert, an older man with a long beard, seated a few tables away. The examiner takes Kraft by the wrist and uses his Analyze Aptitude ability. After a few moments, the old-timer lets out a scream full of stunned disbelief that silences the entire hall. He confesses to Kraft that, after all this time, being a magician was the least compatible class for him. It was so ill-suited that a single mistake could have easily cost him his life. No wonder he sucked as a magician. Kraft staggers and collapses into a heap, horrified by the examiner's findings. He wasted 4 years of his life working his tail off for nothing, all because of an ill-fitting crest. Thankfully, today Lady Luck smiles upon him. The examiner reveals that he can easily change Kraft's crest to fit his aptitude, and the crest that best suits him just so happens to be a near-godlike power known as the Twilight Alchemist. The entire guild releases a collective gasp as they reel from the jaw-dropping revelation. Everyone believed that crest to be a thing of legend, and yet before them is a young man who bears the said mark. A young man who's been brandished as a glorified scrub, no less. Normal alchemists are already quite hard to come by, so having a Twilight Alchemist in the guild ranks would be unbelievable. In Craft's world, people are given classes based on their aptitude to the various crests. They rank up as they continuously improve their abilities, granting them access to specialized skills. The Twilight Alchemist sits at the pinnacle of the alchemy class. Now, it is time for Craft to leap into the flames and be reborn as a god. Before the examiner changes his crest, he glances at the mark on his hand. He'd been to hell and back with this crest, but sadly, things were not meant to be. The old-timer raises his staff, creating a tornado of energy that engulfs the boy. Then, Craft's old mark slowly disappears, giving way to a golden crest that shines brighter than the sun. In that instant, all the magic built up from his years of training explodes into a stream of power that flows through his body. The entire guild watches in awe while the dazzling spectacle before them unfolds. And then, just like that, it's over. Craft is officially a Full Metal Alchemist. I mean, a Twilight Alchemist. As Craft thanks the examiner for his assistance, a young girl excitedly calls out to them. Leafin Hammond slowly approaches the two, her eyes alight with wonder as she marvels at the newfound abilities of the lad. She tells Craft she feels at ease now since having an alchemist with her in the frontier will make things much safer. Wait, who is this kid? Seeing the confused look on Craft's face, the guild leader introduces Leafin as the head of the frontier town. This girl. Then, he expresses his concern over wasting such a talent by sending him off to the frontier. But Leafin has already made up her mind, remaining resolute and determined. She firmly grasps Craft, declaring that the alchemist is accompanying her no matter what. Meanwhile, Craft is in a whirlwind of awkward emotions as the young lady brushes against him. The guild leader sees the alchemist's flushed face and tells him not to worry since Leafin is a part gnome and actually quite older than both of them. Unfortunately, it seems like mentioning Leafin's age was a step too far. Enraged, she summons a massive hammer, the sight of which sends the guild leader staggering backward. He begs for mercy, promising to never make light of her age again. Thankfully, Leafin relents and walks back to the alchemist's side, leaving the guild leader with a warning. However, it seems like Craft is still uncomfortable with the notion of having a little girl so close to him, despite her advanced age. He politely asks her to give him some space, to which she happily agrees. I thought everyone liked hugs from grannies and little girls, the guilder says as he laughs boisterously. Oh, his insults send Leafin over the edge and smashes her hammer on the ground, shattering the wooden floor. Despite her size, this girl can surely pack a punch. No wonder she was selected to lead the frontier town. With the forward team assembled, the guild leader expresses his final lingering concern. His worry centers around the location's supervisor, as there's a possibility they might belong to one of the noble families. Witnessing a person of such high status venture on such a dangerous mission is quite a rare occurrence, almost as rare as a Twilight Alchemist. But Craft has no time for doubts, since it is his first mission with his new crest. He knows he must do everything possible to ensure its success. The next morning, Craft watches as the guild members stock the frontier caravan with all sorts of essential goods. Seeing them so hard at work makes him wonder if his new skill, spatial storage, will be of any assistance to them. He approaches Lehan and the guild leader, telling them about his newfound ability. Turns out that spatial storage is actually a rare and invaluable skill, and the two hurriedly push the alchemist towards one of the carts, eager to see his skill at work. Before Craft is a cart filled to the brim with heavy cement blocks and boxes of construction materials. He doubts that he can store all of these items, however, there is no harm in trying. Also, the alchemist knows that now is the perfect moment to test the limits of his abilities. He raises his hand towards the cart and the magic around him builds into a vortex of golden light. In the blink of an eye, the cart and its contents vanish into thin air. That didn't seem so hard. Craft himself is also taken aback at how easily he absorbed the cart. Of course, his ability works both ways, as he quickly returns the cart to its original location. Behind him, the entire guild cheers on, enchanted by his mesmerizing display of alchemy. The guild leader is so impressed that he orders the rest of his members to gather all the boxes into one massive heap, which Craft easily stores in his magical space. Elated, the guild leader offers to pay the budding alchemist half of what he saved from ditching the carts. And just like that, Craft had made more money in one day as an alchemist than he ever did as a magician. With everything ready for their journey, the team prepares to depart. Before they set out, Lehan approaches the alchemist and suggests they become well acquainted since they will work side by side on the frontier. Craft, with an infectious smile, happily embraces the idea, and the rest of the guild members, witnessing the camaraderie between their leaders, burst into heartfelt cheers. The stage is now set for an unforgettable expedition, and thus Kraft embarks on a journey full of challenges and opportunities in pursuit of a better future on the Untamed Frontier. Unfortunately, it seems like the Untamed Frontier will have to wait till after the Pioneer Squad ceremony. Before them is an assembly of the city's finest knights, adorned in armor that glistens with the morning sun. From within the sea of silver and gold emerges Zaid Gandar Baelord, Master Margrave's eldest son. He greets the crowd with a loving wave as they kneel before their esteemed leader. Zaid dives right in, warmly introducing the frontier town's supervisor, his younger brother Kyle Gandar Baelord. Behind the loud-spoken aristocrat are two frightened children, barely taller than the diminutive Leifin. Annoyed by his brother's timidity, Zaid orders him to speak up while giving him a hard tap on the back. Kyle staggers forward as the crowd watches with bated breath. Then, Kyle formally introduces himself and his younger sister, Maina Baelord, as the supervisors for this mission. These kids will lead the missions. Horrified, the guild leader questions Lord Zaid's decision. The frontier is an unexplored land with countless dangers. How could they let two children take on such a daunting task? Zaid brushes off his concerns, assuring the guild leader they are prepared to face whatever lies ahead. And even if things did go south, he need not worry since the blame would fall on the supervisor's shortcomings. Kraft, who had been quietly observing this entire time, quickly sees through the aristocrat's wicked scheme. Zaid plans to ruin his brother's career by giving him an impossible task and, in turn, bolster his ambitions. The wicked lord goes on a wild tirade, claiming that the mission will provide his sickly brother a means to restore his honor and finally contribute to the family. But Kyle knows otherwise, and his tightly clenched fist shows it. Sensing the young lord's frustration, Kraft finally decides to step in. The alchemist interrupts Zaid mid-speech, assuring the aristocrat that he will personally see to the mission's success. Moreover, he will move heaven and earth to ensure the siblings return triumphantly with their heads held high. Really, what can you even do? The aristocrat asks, intrigued by Kraft's bold claims. Well, I can certainly do more for Kyle than you possibly could, the alchemist responds, his voice dripping with disdain. Kraft's unmitigated gall leaves the entire crowd in stunned silence. He may be a twilight alchemist, but disrespecting an aristocrat was pushing it. In disbelief, the guild leader grabs his head, preparing himself for the worst. Instead, something peculiar happens. Zaid erupts into laughter while praising the alchemist for his boldness. Meanwhile, the crowd watches in confusion as their lord's laughter fills the city square. After laughing to his heart's content, Zaid grants the alchemist carte blanche, urging him to employ any method necessary to achieve the desired outcomes. As a final gesture, he wishes the pioneers a fond farewell before vanishing into the sea of soldiers. Phew, glad that's over. Looks like Kraft is out of the woods. Nope. Suddenly, Leifin and the guild leader rush to the lad's side, scolding him for his reckless behavior. Thankfully, Kyle interrupts the two before they can further berate him. With a thankful look in his eyes, he asks Kraft why he stood up for him. The alchemist apologizes for his rudeness before explaining the reason behind his actions. He defended Kyle because of the similarities in their respective circumstances, while Kraft acknowledges the impropriety of meddling in others' affairs. Seeing the frustrated look on the young lord's face reminded him of a time when others also viewed him as incompetent. Despite knowing nothing about Kyle's situation, the alchemist is sure the young lord feels a similar pain. So he offers Kyle his power, the power to help others and change the world. Moved by the alchemist's sincerity, Kyle steals his resolve. Compared to his older brother, he is sickly, frail, and powerless. He has lived his entire life cowering behind others while using his weakness as an excuse. However, this time, he will do everything in his power to ensure the success of the frontier mission. Kyle humbly requests everyone for their strength in this endeavor, as no man is an island. In response, the crowd lets out a triumphant roar in support of their young lord. On that day, Kyle's unwavering resolve captured the hearts of the entire guild, igniting their spirits as they finally set out on their expedition to the frontier. After 2 days, the exhausted frontier team finally arrives at the mysterious forest. Despite little resistance during their journey, traveling endlessly for hours has sucked the life out of most of the group. Seeing the plight of her people, Leifin decides to set up camp beneath the dense canopy. A while later, as Leifin and Kraft huddle beside a warm campfire, the frontier leader expresses dismay over their group's situation. Constantly stopping and resting would mean their arrival at the frontier would be greatly delayed, setting everything back. In response, the quick-witted alchemist suggests that they craft stamina potions to help alleviate their fatigue. Thankfully, the ingredients needed to make this concoction are quite common. Leifin seconds the alchemist's idea but reminds him that they'd need a truckload of herbs to create enough potions for the entire group. Upon hearing this, a curious Kraft wonders why the instructions provided to him by his crest asked for only a spoonful of herbs. Well, there is only one way to find out. He grabs a handful of dried herbs from his spatial storage and mixes them into a bowl of river water. Then, he activates his crest, releasing a whirlwind of magic that slowly disappears into the bowl, creating a beautiful golden liquid. Eager to see the results of his first attempt at mixing a potion, the alchemist asks Leifin to appraise his work. With a graceful flourish, she casts her appraisal magic, only to be left utterly astonished by the revelation that the concoction Kraft just made is of the highest quality. He crafted a legendary item on his first try. Thanks to Kraft's mastery, most of the tired frontiersmen quickly regain their strength. Only Kyle and Mena are yet to drink the golden elixir. Kraft tries to hand the sibling a bottle but is quickly thwarted by their bodyguards, Belcia and Alfred. To ensure the potion's safety, Alfred decides to take a quick sip. Suddenly, the guard leaps into the air as energy swiftly flows through him like a coursing river. Good thing the potion worked, because moments later, the camp is attacked by a horde of goblins. Emboldened by the power overflowing within him, Alfred rushes forward with all the strength of a raging fire. He bombards the helpless goblins, quickly decimating their ranks. In an instant, the battle is over. Upon returning to camp, Alfred gives the potion his seal of approval. Ecstatic, the two nobles sip from the vial and instantly regain their lost strength. Now, everyone is ready to forge onwards. Thanks to Kraft's stamina potion, the anticipated month-long journey is significantly expedited, allowing the group to reach the construction site in just half the time. Upon arrival, Leifin reveals that the area used to be the Gnomish settlement she once called home. She gives Kraft a quick tour of the ruins, pointing out the remains of various locations as they walk by them. However, their brief excursion is suddenly interrupted when Kyle calls out to them. He tells the two about his plans to address the workers before they begin constructing the settlement. Leifin happily agrees and heads out to gather the workers. As she leaves, Kraft wonders about the events that led to the ruin of this village. He knows nothing about it, yet it doesn't feel right to ask about Leifin's past. Not one to overthink, brushes of his concerns and heads to the gathering. A while later, Kyle stands confidently on a makeshift stage, poised to address the eager crowd. He reveals the purpose of their mission: to cultivate the fertile lands around the area and explore the untraversed woods. The invaluable resources they'll collect from this mission will then be sent to the Empire, nestled just beyond the mountain range. He ends his speech with a promise: as the supervisor of this mission, he shall strive his hardest. His words are again met with passionate and loving cheers from the crowd. Then, before he leaves the stage, the young lord introduces Kraft to the entire camp. He praises the alchemist for his skill and reassures all that their journey is in capable hands with him by their side. The crowd erupts into joyous celebration, carrying Kraft like a sack and tossing him into the air. Hip hip, hooray. It seemed like they were really happy as they continued merrily hoisting the delighted alchemist for well over an hour. I think I'm gonna be sick. An hour later, an exhausted Kraft listens to Leifin address the adventurers who guarded the convoy during its journey. Now that they have arrived safe and sound, the group no longer needs protection, so their escorts can depart. Before they leave, the adventurers request that they receive another stamina potion instead of the agreed-upon rewards. Leifin obliges but warns them that potions will deteriorate over time if not stored within a special bottle. Thankfully, Kraft has got them covered. He reaches into his spatial storage and retrieves a small pouch containing a stamina potion that will last for over a millennium. Excuse me, what? The adventurers depart with their millennium potion as construction begins in full swing at the gnome settlement. And soon enough, the workers complete the settlement's temporary housing. They assign Kraft and Leifin a shared living space, much to the leader's chagrin. She finds it inappropriate to share a room with Kraft, even if they are the only two guild members in the area. Leifin tries to maintain her composure, but her body seems to have a mind of its own. Just the thought of sleeping in the same room as Kraft has her cheeks warm and her palms sweaty. He's weak, mom's spa, ahem. In a futile attempt to regain control, Leifin suddenly rambles hysterically about her being old and unpure. Seeing her plight, the sympathetic worker explains that the house was built with 2 rooms, so both will have privacy. Leifin breathes a sigh of relief, though a hint of embarrassment still lingers in the rosy hue of her cheeks. Moments later, Kyle approaches the pair and reveals his intention to build a well within the settlement. Though they are situated close to a river, transporting water back and forth would be quite inefficient. The pair second the young lord's motion, and Kraft suggests that they craft the well using a process known as dowsing. Using alchemy, one can create a gem known as a dowsing drop, which is used to locate resource veins deep beneath the earth. Once they find the vein, the team can build the well so they'd have water even if craft is not present. Unfortunately, they lack the materials needed to craft such a magnificent gem. The key ingredient to making these crystals are magical stones, which one may collect after defeating a monster. However, the group would have to defeat large monsters, such as orcs, for the needed amount. Simply buying these stones is out of the question, as orc-class magical stones are quite pricey. Their only option is to go hunting. Now, if only there were orcs nearby. Right on cue, a couple of workers come rushing out of the forest, looking like they'd just stared death in the eye. During their explorations, they located a massive group of orcs close to their vicinity. While most people would be terrified by this news, Kraft is elated. He offers to scout the area alone, drawing from his extensive experience as an adventurer. Leifin is initially hesitant but soon relents to the alchemist's insistence. Before he departs, Kraft reassures the group that there is no need for concern since he is well equipped to handle anything that comes his way. And thus, he leaves, quickly disappearing into the foliage. Sometime later, Kraft finds himself gazing upon the towering trees of the Forest of Monsters. Suddenly, he notices a presence behind him and quickly hides behind a bush. From his hiding spot, Kraft counts about 30 massive orcs camped in the nearby glade. Perfect. Now he can finally put his new, high-level spells to the test. Let the show begin. He stands forth and casts Dark Abyssal Ice Prism. Around him, the once humid air grows cold as snowflakes materialize out of nowhere. Then, the heavens unleash their fury, an unstoppable force of wind and ice that freezes everything in its path. The once peaceful camp, now enveloped in a swirling tornado of white, is rendered unrecognizable. The orcs within are instantly encased in icy tombs, becoming frozen monuments to Kraft's power. As Kraft celebrates his victory, he soon realizes that even he is not immune to the blizzard that rages on. Fearing for his life, the alchemist quickly extracts the magical stones from the fallen orcs and hastily escapes. Upon returning to the settlement, Kraft triumphantly announces his victory over the orcs, stunning the entire team. He recounts how he completely wiped out 33 massive beasts without breaking a sweat. Even more impressive, he defeated them using his so-called incompetent magical abilities. As the workers gather the collected magical stones, Kraft wonders if he could make it as an adventurer this time, given that he now has unlimited magic at his disposal. However, he soon abandons his wishful thinking, recognizing his duty to ensure Kyle's success in his mission. Moments later, Kraft presents the newly forged dowsing drop. He holds the gem in front of him and walks around the area, waiting for it to light up. Soon enough, the gem glows a brilliant gold, signifying the location of a water vein. The workers hastily dig through the dirt until they finally find their precious aqua. Suddenly, Leifin calls everyone's attention and starts bragging about the alchemist's past adventures, eliciting an impressed gasp from the workers. Fueled by boundless joy, the workers quickly erect the new well, securing a new pristine water source for the entire settlement. That's one problem solved. The next morning, the alchemist is joined by Kyle and Mena as he enjoys a hearty breakfast. The young lord greets his friend, with his sister following suit, much to her brother's surprise. Mena, often reserved, exhibits an unusual openness, implying a fascination with the alchemist's pursuits. The young lord brushes off his sister's antics and turns his attention to Kraft, inquiring about the day's agenda. The alchemist, in turn, outlines his plans to study and create new potions to help the settlement. And he does just that. After breakfast, Kraft heads straight toward his workstation and begins mixing. As he works, Mena stands quietly behind him, intently watching his every move. It seems like she followed Kraft directly from the breakfast table, all the while gently clasping the end of his cloak. Cute. Beside her stands her dedicated guardian, Belcia, who apologizes for her master's temporary silence. The guard tells Kraft that her master has taken an interest in him, hence her constant presence. Unfortunately, the guard's words pass unnoticed as Kraft finds himself distracted by her remarkable qualities. Belcia catches the alchemist's unwanted stare, causing him to quickly look away. After their brief awkward encounter, Kraft retrieves some magical stones from within his spatial storage. Then, he crushes the stones using his magical stone pulverization skill, turning them into a fine dust. Finally, Kraft pours the powder into the mixture, completing his healing potion. He spends the next hour crafting several more successful batches, which he then stores within his spatial storage. All the while, Mena watches on, her eyes filled with admiration for the alchemist. With the work now completed, Belcia suggests they take their leave since they've probably taken too much of the alchemist's time. Not at all. "It's always nice to talk with someone beautiful," responds Kraft, grinning from ear to ear. His words catch Belia by surprise, and the guard goes on a rage-filled tirade before storming off with an also agitated Mena. Geez, what's gotten into those two? Anyway, back to the work at hand. Kraft now has an abundant supply of healing potions, but sadly no subject to test on. Oh, if only someone got horribly maimed by some goblins. Suddenly, the alchemist hears a commotion coming from the forest. He rushes outside and sees a young hunter named Gitero being dragged out of the woods. The hunter, injured in a vicious encounter with some goblins, bleeds profusely from his chest. Thankfully, he was able to wipe the beasts out and make it back to camp. What are the odds? Fard orders the workers to rush Gitero to the infirmary while he scouts the perimeter for any remaining goblins. Before he departs, he leaves Gitero in the capable hands of the alchemist. In the infirmary, Belcia watches over her severely wounded brother. Gitero apologizes to his sister for his carelessness, but states that he felt it was his duty to fight off the goblins since they were in close proximity to the settlement. When Kraft finally arrives, he gives the hunter's wounds a deep clean before surveying the damage. And boy, it doesn't look good. Gitero's chest muscles are severely torn, while several of his arteries are severed. Truth be told, it's a medical miracle that he had it back to the settlement on his own. Kraft knows the hunter's wounds will soon prove fatal if not dealt with immediately. His only option is to use his untested healing potion. Leifin rushes in carrying a barrel of the salve, dropping it right beside the alchemist. Then, Kraft quickly fills a cup and pours it over the hunter's open wounds. As soon as the liquid connects with the injury, a massive cloud of smoke fills the room, causing everyone to stagger backward. When the dust settles, Gitero sits upright, his wounds fully healed. Once again, everybody is left in awe of Kraft's magical prowess, none more impressed than Gitero himself. He'd never felt better in his entire life, even after almost dying. Filled to the brim with energy, he rushes out of the infirmary to work in the fields, despite everyone's protests. Impressed by the potion's effectiveness, Belcia believes they should send the connection to the army. However, Kraft suggests that they sell it to them instead, as it would provide the settlement with a steady flow of income. Suddenly, the once festive mood turns serious as Belcia approaches the alchemist. She asks Kraft if he can keep a secret since the story she is about to tell him is of the utmost significance. The alchemist listens intently as Belcia begins her tale. For the longest time, the Margraves have been embroiled in a bitter power struggle that has thrown the family into chaos. Siblings fight amongst themselves for supremacy, resorting to even the most devious of tactics. This conflict is why Zai was more than willing to throw his brother under the bus. Belcia believes that granting them the army to the healing potion would only lead to further conflict. Thus, keeping the elixir a secret for now would be best to avoid further bloodshed. Kraft and Leifin echo her sentiments, after which all three depart to perform their respective duties. Intrigued by the misadventure of the young hunter, Kraft decides to personally pay him a visit. Despite his young age, Gitero is a skilled hunter who should not have had problems dealing with the goblins. Yet, he returned a bloody mess. How could that have happened? Only Gitero can answer that. Kraft approaches the young hunter, who is still toiling in the fields. After a brief chit-chat, the alchemist asks Gitero about how he almost fell to the goblins. The hunter, in turn, explains that his already blunt machete snapped in half during the battle, leaving him defenseless. His curiosity further piqued, Kraft reminds the hunter to take things slow before heading straight for the repair shed. Once inside, the alchemist carefully scans the broken blade, revealing the reason for its failure. The machete's appraisal quality was of the lowest level, making it brittle and blunt. The blade was so far gone that even a skilled blacksmith like Leifin couldn't save it. But if there was someone who could save this blade, it would be Kraft. He grabs a handful of stones and begins working his magic. A while later, the alchemist enters Leifin's forge. Before him, the fires within the smithy burn bright, casting a warm glow that dances across the tools. It seems like he had arrived at the perfect moment since Leifin was about to start repairing broken metal tools. He asks Leifin if he can test his new concoction, created using magical stones. Kraft presents a vial of hard forging oil, a mixture used to harden items. Upon seeing the concoction, Lee's eyes grow wide with astonishment. Hard forging oil is a legendary item coveted by blacksmiths worldwide for its unmatched ability to strengthen items. Unfortunately, the mixture is quite rare since only chemists are capable of creating it. Eager to test the oil, Leifin rushes to her forge and begins hammering away at a piece of metal. As the blade slowly takes shape, she coats it with the magical concoction, creating a true masterpiece of craftsmanship. Let's put this blade to the test. Wielded by Giotaro, the newly forged machete easily slices through even the thickest of tree branches. And despite having already lopped off hundreds of boughs, the blade is still pristine. It's amazing to think that they created such an effective blade using the lowest quality of steel. But Kraft is not done yet. He asks Giotaro to coat his blade with another mysterious concoction, to which the hunter obliges, smearing his blade with the liquid. Then, he tests his machete on another tree, and as expected, the branch easily comes off. Suddenly, the tree beside him slides towards the right before completely toppling over. He cut down a whole tree in one strike. What kind of potion was that? While the alchemist is quite amused with the blade's improvement, Leafen is livid. Her voice bristles with anger as she asks Kraft if he knowingly handed the careless hunter a sharpness oil. The alchemist praises her intuition, but she is in no mood. She scolds him for recklessly creating and distributing such a deadly concoction, one that could have easily led to someone's death. Speaking of recklessness, Giotaro is already showing off his new blade to the entire settlement. There is no way this will end well. Despite their dangers, the guild leader knows that the potions Kraft created are invaluable to the guild. However, to sustain the production of these essential elixirs, Kraft would need a steady supply of magical stones. This, in turn, would require them to hunt more dangerous monsters. However, Leafen has more pressing matters to attend to, and she promises to discuss the monster hunting predicament later. Before she bids the two farewell, she makes them swear to stay out of trouble, an oath they both readily affirm. The next morning, an exhausted Kraft strolls to relax his weary mind since he had been up all night creating all the necessary potions and oils. As the alchemist walks by Kyle's house, he notices something amiss. He peeks through the doorway and finds the young lord in a state of despair. Kyle's face is contorted with unease as a thin layer of cold sweat glistens on his forehead. Seemingly gripped by restlessness, the young lord tosses and turns, his breathing more labored with every movement. Suddenly, Kyle grabs his chest, sending the alchemist into a panic. Unfortunately, Kraft can only watch as the nightmare that ensnared the young lord slowly tightens its grip. It seems like Kraft's fortunes have taken a remarkable turn for the better. After 4 years of utter incompetence, he has found a new home within the Workers' Guild. Over the last month, he's made friends and allies who appreciate his newfound abilities, and rightfully so. His potions and oils have helped comrades build the settlement they envisioned. Together they've confronted and conquered all of the challenges presented to them. However, in the face of the young lord's greatest trial yet, Kraft finds himself powerless. Will he be able to save his friend, or will another Margrave fall victim to power struggle that has left nothing but death in its wake?
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.